Let's move on about the Little Calumet River. I don't even know if we can before we talk about right to work because we have to talk about that, but that's blocking discussion and passage right now of maintenance funding for the Little Calumet River. Of course, the Little Calumet River runs smack dab right through the middle of your North Township, and of course, you were very instrumental in providing relief to many victims of the flood. You know that river as well as any as it runs through Wicker Park, which you're in charge of. The new legislation is kind of a McDermott, Soliday, Chet Dobis, Mark Candelaria Reardon, all kind of putting it together. It is so widely accepted. My dad even went down there to testify on that, as you well know, without my prior knowledge, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
And he feels strongly that this needs to go through. I mean, what do you think about it?
I think that obviously I've talked to my father, and it is the only game in town. I think that's what your dad's feeling was. And when it comes over to the Senate side, um, my dad, Senator Mrvan, is looking to obviously be a sponsor of that bill and try and move it along. And in politics and government, you have to know your history. That is where a lot of the controversy came up, and Senator Rogers wasn't exactly for the last bill. And with that, that's where it kind of died or didn't move. And so Luke Kenley, who is in charge of, think, tax and fiscal policy, but basically, if I'm incorrect with that, he's in charge of anything that has to do with money in the Senate. And Luke Kenley has tentatively said that it is something that he approves of, and hopefully it'll move forward. What you're trying to say is if the bottleneck of the right to work halts up the legislation, then what will happen? And I know we've talked about that in the past, but I think that other bills are moving along, and that the Little Calumet River funding, since it's um, everyone seems to have an agreement, and you have Mayor McDermott, who's a big player in it, with the basically the compromise of the board that it should pass, and we should have the funding come June or July when it goes into effect.
Now, you were here last time and you made a prediction or an observation that you thought that it could be a lengthy, I don't know even know what you call it. It's not a walkout. It's a lengthy
Drag out.
drag out fight between the Democrats and the Republicans, basically downstate, and that they could be out for a while.
Correct.
2 days later, or a couple of days later, they walk back in and they try to go back and do business. A week later, they walk out again, and this time it looks like they may be hunkering down despite some of these fines that are being levied. When you first said that, I was like, well, I don't know. And then when the Democrats came back, I'm like, maybe Frank was wrong on this one. And now it kind of steering back to perhaps there is a longer, deeper drag out coming our way, which would affect a lot of legislation.
Correct. I think that to stem the tide, and I've been listening a lot lately, to stem the tide of it's going to be a cat and mouse game, but to stem the tide of public perception or polling numbers or actual real perception that the Democrats aren't doing their job, they're going to try and strategically play it out. I, and this is only my humble opinion, and we talked about it jokingly, but through the Super Bowl, I think that the AFL-CIO and the unions, when Indianapolis is on the spotlight of the world, they're going to, and it's already in the Indianapolis Star today, they're going to use that as a stage to to have the nation recognize how the Republicans in the state of Indiana are treating the working men and women. And I'm quoting that from an article that's Indianapolis Star. And I think that's a strategic plan. They want the people to be aware of the right to work, and that's the Democratic Party and the unions, and the impact that it will have on our state. I'm a firm believer that it will negatively impact the amount of money that people will make. And in my eyes, when you look at legislation, you look at basically the benefits and the negatives. The benefits are to potential employers. That's what the key word that the governor consistently says is potential employers who aren't coming here. Well, on the other side of the coin, and I'm going to consistently use this, when Modern Drop Forge came to Maryville and there were 100 people there, lots of news cameras, because it was news that we brought a business from Blue Island, Illinois to Northwest Indiana. Because at that time, the taxes in Illinois increased, and it was the perfect backdrop for the governor saying that Indiana is a wonderful environment. You had the billboards that were up that said, if you're an Illinois company, come to Indiana. But that's a union shop. So you had a major employer of a forging company who is union decide to come to Northwest Indiana. And the governor was there and was proud of that. But all of a sudden, something's changed where it is vital. It's the number one priority. This is the most important thing that we have in the state. I think we're number 5 on the list of being the best places in the country to come to. So what, we're going to move up to number 4 or number 3? So it's just, it's BS, and it's all politics, and it's about being able to flex your power, and it's about being able to cut funding, and it's a national approach towards what's going on. And what's going to happen is you really need to look at the Oklahomas, the Mississippis, the Nevadas. Nevada has the highest unemployment rate in the country, and they have right to work. Wages have gone down in Oklahoma. So, what do we want to be? Do we want to be Mississippi and Oklahoma?